Welcome back to Rather Be Board Gaming. If you missed it in the last video, just rambled a lot, wet palette, mixed some paints, did the base coat on all these skins. Took a little longer than I wanted, but it's not bad. So now, what I am hoping to do is finish these up in this next hour. We're going to start off by mixing some of this green and yellow. And I want much more yellow this time to get it a lighter, sickly looking color. And if I have to, I can get some more out of my bottle. Yeah, it's looking pretty cool. I think I am going to go ahead and get some more paint. No big deal. Drop it over here to the side. I don't want to go just pure yellow for the highlight, but I do want it noticeably lighter than the old green. That is starting to look pretty good. Of course, I've made a mess, but that's alright. Let's see if I can't get that mixed up a little bit better right there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is get this brush. And it is already kind of, you can see the bristles are kind of everywhere. But that's alright, because I'm going to get a tiny bit of paint. Then I'm going to paint it off onto the paper towel. And then I'm just going to go back lightly. Let's get it off a little bit more. Well, I wanted to do a good dry brush, but this brush might not work. So I'm going to scrap that and try a different brush. Let's try this one. It's got a little bit better of a tip. Okay. Got a dry paper towel here. I'm putting the paint down on that paper towel so that most of it is off of the brush, and now I can just go across the skin, top of the skin. And especially where you want it to look like light is shining. It will take some practice, but when you get the paint the right consistency on your brush, you simply just run the brush kind of roughly over where you're wanting to paint, and it will do the job for you. It's not hard at all. It is okay. At least a little bit of paint just on the brush, and then just flick it across. And if you get too much in a spot, then as the brush thins out, okay, just go back over it. Pick some of it up. This, once you get the feel for it, shouldn't take too long. Now the reason I'm doing it this way is the last time when I did some washing, oops, too much paint. It covered up a lot of my detail I wanted, which can happen, and I had trouble getting it to look the way I wanted. So this time I did the wash. So I started off with my base color, my mid-tone I guess you'd say, and then I did the wash, and now I'm going back over it with the highlight, because I'm hoping to not touch the skin areas anymore after this. They will be done. Okay, and then all I will have is the armor. And I will mainly do detail work, a detail brush, and let's see if you can see what that looks like in real time. Detail brush, thin paint, and just kind of go real quick. Let's see if it'll, there you go. So you can see like wrinkles in his head, pits in his face. See if I get it closer, if I can zoom it in good. Focus. It doesn't want to focus well. Too much stuff in the background probably. Anyway, you can see, there you go, you can see some light green, some dark green, and then some black on the legs and the arms. Looks really cool in person. Get this camera kind of back in focus, and we'll just keep going at it. So, put some paint down on this paper towel. Paint it off the best I can. And then let's start like right here, somewhere where I don't mind if I have a little bit of extra paint. It's like on the kneecap. And once again, don't worry if you get some of this paint on the armor or anything, because we haven't painted that yet. And it's going to be black, and so we'll be able to paint over it no problem. So I started with that kneecap because I don't mind if it is really light colored, okay? It'll shine and look cool. That way I can get off some of the excess paint before I move on to stuff like the face. Oh, this looks so cool in person. I'm hoping I can get some really cool pictures with the camera, with the webcam, to show you guys. And another thing you can do when you're doing this, he has a really strong bony cheek line. So just get a little extra paint, okay? Just a little bit. And then just flick it against the edge to make sure it has paint on it for that highlight, and give it a nice ridge. Yes, 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 yes. Looking cool, looking cool. Very pleased with what we have going here so far. Now remember, if I'm pretending the flashlight on the soldier's weapon is the primary source of light hitting this guy, then I want the palms to really shine. Now these are so small that you don't have to worry about if your reflective light shading choices aren't perfect, your color scheme's not perfect. Don't worry about it. It's a tabletop mini and it's small, and you're doing this so that you'll have a more enjoyable time while playing your board game. Okay? And it does take a while to paint. I'm not gonna lie, it takes a while to paint these. And I sometimes procrastinate and don't get to it, but I enjoy it. Once you start getting the paint on the figures and you see how cool they start looking, then you get motivated. Now, you can see on his back on the Mini, it's probably hard to see on the camera, so I'm not even going to try. But there is a section where it looks like you can see his spine, where perhaps he has a shoulder plate but no lower back plate. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to try to fill in that gap there. I'm just going to make it all one big armor piece. Make it time saver and much easier to work with. So a little more paint off the wet palette onto the paper towel so that the brush is almost completely dry. And there we go. So you can see this step, once you get a feel for how much paint you want on the brush to get the desired look, this doesn't take too long. And I would never start with the face on something like this, because you're always going to have a little more paint on the brush than you think you do, and you have a little bit more than you actually want. Now don't be afraid to really go over it though and get it light in places, because when you put that primer on it, even if it is a flat primer, okay? Even if it is a flat primer, it will darken your figure because it's going to block that reflective property of the colors a little bit, and it will dull it down, so it will appear a little darker. So don't be afraid to really put some dry brush color on it, okay? Once you get that sealer down on it, it's much harder to add paint at that point. Not impossible, but to get it to look the way you want, it's going to be much harder than to do it now. So, just like when you paint your walls at home, it dries darker. Okay, these paints will dry darker, and the clear coat will make them appear a little darker. Now that time I got a little bit too much paint, even for me, for my liking. So I'm going to dab some and then come back and move that paint around. There we go. That looks better. This kind of figure is just perfect for a dry brush technique because there's so many little ridges and details in the skin. Okay, just remember where you're wanting your light source to be and make sure it is much lighter than the other side. Okay, so at the end of the day, it looks somewhat consistent. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want his face and back to be the most shiny thing if the light is not directly overhead. Put a little bit on the heel. Now on some of these figures I did paint the heels, but it's such a smooth surface and so small between the ankle and foot strap, it's not holding the paint well. Don't worry about it. Okay, by the time you paint that strap black or red, I'll probably do mine red. I'll probably do all the leather like that red. The color difference will stand out. Unless you're colorblind, you might have trouble seeing the difference, and then you can do a different color. You do a black and blue. I saw black and blue in it online, and it looked really cool too. Yeah, this one here got a little bit more paint on the brush than I thought. It's okay, I'll work it off, but it's just going to be a little more work getting it moved around to the locations I want, if that makes sense. Get a little bit on the ridge of that bicep there, yeah. You are a scary looking dude now. So this is where the primering really comes in. You get that nice base coat down and it doesn't have to be perfect. Then when you come back and do a dry brushing technique like this, which is really so much easier than I thought it would be, okay? I can't stress how easy it is to get this cool look, guys. Then that undercoat black primer just helps out so much. And then the veins and sinews and that bicep on his arm is just really popping out. And his fingertips. Almost got too much on this guy's palm. His palms are almost glowing, but that's alright. He'll be a little different. He's just a little different than the others. They're all just a little unique, right? Put a little bit on this elbow and on that back of that arm, just a little bit, not much. Now you can, if it's a bigger model and you have a steady hand and you feel like it, you could go with pure yellow now and do like the edge of the chin and the edge of the fingers and give it almost a glowing effect. But I am not going to take that time and go that extra layer. This, to me, looks plenty cool enough. I'm so pleased with how it is turning out. Okay, again, we'll start with somewhere we want a lot of paint to thin it out on the brush. Sorry, I got quiet for a while. Sitting, lost in my thoughts and painting. I am not used to leaving the camera running and painting. So, I got quiet. I apologize. Maybe when I edit it, I can put in the music I downloaded for the intro the other day. Some of that free to use YouTube music. It's pretty cool. I thought it sounded pretty cool. Kind of fit the theme pretty good. Gears of War. I was scared to use the actual music because I don't have permission. So I got something that sounded pretty cool. This will mess up a brush a little bit, but I've got a bunch of these old soft brushes that I don't really use much for painting, and these are perfect. These soft brushes are perfect for highlighting like this, dry brushing. Just run it across real rough, and as long as you have the paint on the edge of the brush fairly weak, then it should only rub off onto the highest points, the ridges. The paint is not wet enough to run down into the crevices, and that will leave you a nice natural shadowing effect. Oh, and this gave this guy some sickly looking teeth. I love it. Get just a little bit more over here. Okay, I'm gonna have to get a little more paint. That paper towel, and in combination with that lamp, it really is drying up that paint, which is kind of what you want for dry brushing. You want it thin and dry, and you want the brush almost dry to the touch. There we go. Now I'm done with that, but I have an idea I want to see if I can do. If it doesn't work, it's no big deal. But if it does, it will be pretty cool. So let's just go back and start with this guy. Let me get one of my really small detail brushes. Let's see if I can. Brush is not wanting to stay together good. So I'm going to pick out where I think his eyes are, and I'm going to try and give him some solid yellow eyes. This one I think I got just a little bit low. Pretty cool. Like it. Next, step up. See, do I have a better brush? I think I got a better. Yeah. This one's starting to get a curved tip. I need to, if your brushes start to flay and spread out and not get a good point and stuff, get you an old bar of soap and just sit there and brush it really vigorously on that soap a few times, back and forth. Rinse it, do it again, rinse it, and eventually you'll get that brush clean enough that it should pop back to life. And when it stops doing that, then maybe it's time to just use it for something else and buy you a new brush for detail work. Yep, that's looking pretty cool. And I'm not worried about if the eyes are perfect. I mean, these are monsters. These are scary beasts. They don't even have to be perfectly aligned as long as they are close, so that the monster looks kind of spooky and grotesque. And don't worry about if you think, ooh, I messed it up. It's too bright or it's crooked. Just paint over it while it's still wet. And you can just reverse the steps, or repeat the steps, I should say. And if you want, you don't even have to put any eyes in it. But I thought that I would try. And since these are monsters, you don't have to worry about getting them looking nice and pretty with your paint. If you mess up a little bit, who cares? Might even make them look a little more menacing. Now this guy, I just don't know. He may need just a little more highlights, especially on his face. I think I'm going to. Let's see if I can't get most of that paint off that brush. This brush has a nice point. I want to keep it that way. This guy here, however, was this the brush we used? Nope. There we go. Okay. And this is another good thing about the wet palette and dry brushing. That paint on the wet palette is still plenty wet enough. I can transfer some over. I'm just going to put more on this guy's face, really lighten it up. It has a reptilian look to it when it's done. It looks, man, it looks creepy. I love it. Here we go. All right. So it took just a little longer than we wanted, or I hoped, but not bad. Let's see if we can't get these somewhat lined up and just go down the line. Well, daggone, that's got a hair or something in it. It was stringing out. Always something trying to mess me up. All right. The only place I want to try and be careful is around his face. And that's pretty much it. Everywhere else, we're just gonna paint that armor black and slap it on there. Okay, so I will show you what I'm doing here. Then I will probably cut away and come back once I've done the others and this is dried, instead of just letting it run non-stop. Oops, I painted something I wanted red, black, but that's alright. It'll just take a little extra paint probably, but this is what I'm going to do. If I can get my brush to stand up there. Making a mess. Okay. Not the best brush to use. Yeah, let me use this brush. It's not very good. Get it good and wet. Dab it off. Yeah, this is not a good brush anyway. Bristles are not very good. And we're going to see if we can't pull off some of that black paint while it's still wet, just so that the red will be easier to go on and cover that leather patch easier. It's not a big deal, but almost getting cross-eyed at times trying to do this. These are so small. And my tape is wanting to come undone. I guess that's what I get for not painting for like a week, huh? The sticky's starting to unstick. Trying to see, this one here so far is taking what, 3 minutes? Now the good thing about doing the black armor last, like this, is if you have any spots on your figure that should have been green right next to the edge of the armor, and you're like, oops, just slowly edge the black into that green and it'll hide it pretty well, especially on like arms and stuff like I just had to do. Trying to figure out how much of this I want black and how much of it I want red. I tell you what, I may just go ahead and I pulled some of that paint off, but I may go ahead and do that black and then edge it in red or highlight it in red, just some of the accents, and not worry about doing that leather pouch and that leather patch on his hindquarters, doing it in red. I guess it's on his thigh, the high part of his thigh. Come under here. Make sure we get all up under there, buddy. Cover you up. There we go. All right, that looks pretty good. Now here I am specifically trying to avoid the part that I want to be red. There are some very distinguished lines that look like leather straps, and I'm going to do them just bright red. I don't care. I don't care if they should have been. Now here's an elbow that I missed with green, so I'm just going to extend the armor up a little bit and voila, blend it right in. Nobody will know but me and you. Right? But those leather straps, I'm just going to do red. and it'll be almost like they dyed them a blood red or something instead of just natural brown. Now he does have a little armor plate, and it has like this little design in it. I'm not even worried about that. If it ends up showing through a little bit when the paint is done drying, cool. If not, that's fine too, and I may decide if I want to do just a light red wash over it to give it a little hint of detail. Trying to get the inside edge of his collar without touching his neck. And I'm going to have to get a new piece of tape for this one. It is really unstuck. Here we go. Not perfect, but so much better. And then the parts on the feet, I think they look pretty much just like leather straps. I mean, trying to decide how silly they would look red. So before I cut the camera, trying to not touch this figure any more than I have to. That tape has had it. Give me another piece. They do sell this tacky putty stuff that's almost like thick Play-Doh. Would probably work better, but I'm using what I have at hand available that is easily available. And that is much better already. There we go. So just to get an idea of how that would look, go ahead and get a little red out. And get this brush here. Okay. And the red's kind of thick too, so you may have to just play with your colors, especially on the wet palette. Just kind of spread them out, move them around, and try to get them the consistency you want. So I'm going to paint this foot strap wrapping red to see if I think it looks silly. If I think it would look better black, then I can go back. It's not too bad. I think I'm going to stick with it. I think I'm going to stick with the red. That'll give it a little more color down at the bottom rather than just black, because he's only going to have a few pieces of on the armor that's red, and then the straps on his arms, and then these straps on his feet. So yeah, I think I'll stay with that. Okay, so we'll cut it there, and then we will be back, and I will try to give you a rough estimate of how long. Well, you saw how long it took on this. It took what, 5 minutes to do that with this character, so I got 5 more, about another 30 minutes. All right, I'm going to cut away here. Be back in a little bit. Okay, I just got done watching about a 30-minute video, a DGR Mario video, and I finished painting all the black on them, and I have 2 of them where I have finished the red, and I just picked the straps and then like the leather straps in the belt, like a vent on the front of his armor, and then some stuff on the back of the armor. And in the back ridge plate, I tried to get the red thin, almost like a light brush, and so it looks pretty cool. And I think that once we let it dry and then we put the clear coat on it, it's going to look good. So I have two completely done. I'll decide if I want to do a wash. I don't know that I'll need to. That black is already so dark, and then the only thing that really shines is like the red straps on his feet, which it's not a huge deal. And some of their faces are actually not as detailed and light as I would like after that paint dried, so I'll have to decide if I want to do another quick dry brush. But I don't know, another 20 minutes maybe, and I can get the rest of them finished and ready to prime if I don't do any more dry brushing. So I'm going to stop it here again and come back in a little bit for you guys. Alright, I spent about another 25-30 minutes on all of these, and I think I've got them done. I did go back and touch up some of their faces with some more highlight. We'll let that dry. I'll probably let these dry most of the day, and then tonight I will put the clear coat on them and then try to get some pictures for you guys. But I just picked like the rib cage area in the back. I did almost like a dry brush with the red on it, and then I picked some highlight areas on the armor just to touch it with red, and then I did some on the belly as well. Let's see if you can see that. Alright, let me see if I can get it to focus at all. Yeah, if you can see up inside there. Yeah, the belt buckle, there's a little piece on his chest, then the straps. And then I did like a dry brush almost on the forearm pad, and then on the back in the rib cage area I did almost like a dry brush. So it's a really light colored red. And then these leather straps and metal bits that are like hooks that are painted red, they are more bright. But they will dull when I put the sealer on it. That's why I wanted to get another level of dry brush on the face. It's looking really cool. I am really pleased with how well these turned out. I took a few breaks here and there, and it took me, I don't know, 2 hours maybe and a half, 2.5 hours to do all 6 of those. And I'm not very good at this. My brushes are not very good. My paints are not very good. And I just kind of take my time, and I'm pleased with it. So, just let those dry, and I'll get you some pictures. But anyway, hopefully that'll get some of you motivated to try it too. So, there you go. Stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless. So I forgot to mention that with the bases, I went ahead and just did them black. And especially for tabletop games, I've seen some cool ones online where they did this glowy metal look. And it does match the board pieces pretty well. But I always found it disconjointing, like if you made a lava creature with a lava stand and then they happen to be down fighting in a forest area or a snowy area, or you know, it's not a big deal, but especially for just tabletop board games, I just like simple plain bases. So did them all in black, that way it helps cover up all the little paint mistakes and stuff. Try to get you guys some pictures.